Hello everyone, I'm going to call this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. We have all of our board directors in attendance and many of our student board reps are with us as well. Madison is going to be joining us up on the dais and she's going to lead us in the pledge. If you could please rise and join us, that would be great.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That brings us to agenda item 2.01, which is our action to approve our regular meeting agenda. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 2.01, action to approve the regular meeting agenda?
I move to approve our regular meeting agenda.
Vice President Miller motioned and Director Wiggins seconded. Do we have discussion?
I move to postpone agenda item 5.10, review revised procedure 6700P for a later meeting.
Do we have any questions or discussion about that? Superintendent Hansen, could you explain the reasoning behind that?
We need to review two additional components that are in here. We just didn't have time to get to them.
Okay, I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 2.01, action to approve the regular meeting agenda, passes 5-0. And that brings us to agenda item 3.01, which is the public meeting or public comment portion of the meeting. Each person will be given 3 minutes to comment, and a maximum of 20 minutes for any one topic will be allowed. Speakers whose comments are less than 3 minutes in length may not defer the remaining time to others. If there are multiple speakers on one topic, speakers may be limited to points of view not yet expressed. Any person wishing his or her comment retained as part of the permanent record may submit a prepared statement to the board secretary prior to the oral presentation. The president may interrupt or terminate an individual's statement when it is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Comments and concerns related to district personnel will not be heard in public, but rather should be directed through the complaints concerning school personnel or programs, which is policy 4220. Formal presentations must be scheduled with the superintendent in writing, no later than Tuesday noon, 1 week preceding the regular meeting, and per board procedure, we will not answer or respond to any questions posed by a speaker. So all of that leads us to the actual public comments, and we have one public comment tonight from Valerie Paganelli.
Good evening, nice to be with you again tonight. Valerie Paganelli, community member, former board member at the Dias for Tahoma School District. In that role, I was always dedicated to being openly accessible, transparent, and involved with and listening to those being served by our district. Great work is being done in the district. Some of it here tonight is part of your agenda, and it is so delicate at how easily that can be diminished by lack of commitments to those areas of accessibility, transparency, involvement, and listening. I understand that the board has a desire for its meetings to be efficient, but it's also a place where work is being done and the public is being served and is watching. So if extra time is needed, extra commitment to disclosure is needed, that's an important time. I've made some recent observations on board meeting framework that I feel steps away from being as transparent and open and involved. One is the removal of the board report agenda item. This was always one that I felt we celebrated together. What are our board members doing? What are they learning in their committee work? What site visits have they been on? What community events and issues have come to their attention that they can share with the full board? I don't see that happening. Public comments are no longer included in the meeting minutes. Who spoke and the general topic. How can the public know, other than by submitting, as you say, in the introduction, and how are we chronicling what really is taking place and being shared with the board? Meetings aren't recorded. We used to also have what's called a board tracking information system. I know that's been on the agenda recently and has also been completed as of your last meeting. That was a place where a board director had the opportunity to express an area of deep interest and also potential for deeper governance purposes to be served. An example is last meeting I was here to celebrate a BITS item that I added while on the board years ago for our highly capable program to report in on how it's doing, what it's doing, and how it can be served. And I want to compliment Director Miller for asking some deep questions on how to know we're doing a good job there. I don't know how that happens now for you, and I'd like for that to be shared. Finally, and I'm running out of time, meeting minutes have moved to the consent agenda. It's hard to edit anything in the consent agenda. How are you as a board now able to do that? Are you looking at them ahead of time? Are you offering edits ahead of time? It's not clear to those that you serve. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate being here to celebrate alongside some agenda items.
Thank you, Val. And just a quick note of correction in case you all were uncertain. We are actually recording our minutes now, and they're archived and will continue to be archived going forward. Meetings going forward. Thank you. So agenda item 4.01, Student Board Representative Report. I will pass it down to you.
Awesome. So we have a shorter board report today, but most of it is we had a Future Ready Day on November 4th, where students got to learn about different careers, and juniors and seniors got to do more stuff that was interesting to them. Like some seniors got to go get colleges and stuff surrounding that. And then also we had a bunch of sports teams over the last week who have been doing really good and exceeding really well. It shows a great example of our Tahoma Cares goals and our high expectations, not only with academics, but also in sports as well. Our girls cross country won state over the weekend, boys got 5th, and then both teams won districts the last weekend. Girls swim and dive is heading to state on Friday and Saturday, and they won districts last weekend. And then our girls soccer is moving on to state as well. And that's it.
That's fantastic. We have so much to celebrate. Thank you. We will now move on to the presentation, discussion, and action item portion of our evening. I'd like to remind my fellow board directors that we have agreed on using round robin to ensure that each member has equal opportunity to speak. We will keep our discussion length per agenda item to 20 minutes, which I'm going to monitor, and individual board members' discussions to 3 minutes per agenda item, which Mrs. Wheeler is going to monitor for us. Each director's time will begin with the first word they speak and will continue through the responses that are provided. And we're going to begin with a celebration of our elementary specialists. We have a variety of visitors from Tahoma Elementary, and so if you all could come up, we would love to welcome you.
President Hallwell, just a point of clarity, we're really excited about celebrating the elementary specialists with Bronwyn. We also have Rachel Lagoda and her 2nd grade class here, and we're celebrating their community contributor project, so thank you.
Superintendent Hanson. It's always nice to come before you and share something about the flagship. As Superintendent Hanson mentioned, the specialists, we have a variety of them. Most school systems get to take advantage of having PE and music as the specialist experiences. In true Tahoma fashion, we expanded that to include teacher-ready art and STEM. The richness of experience for kids really is dramatic. And tonight we highlight the art experience of that. One of the video clips you'll see of some of our students, one of them captured, I think, the essence of it by saying, art is just something that makes you feel really good inside. And that's true. And that is how we want our kids to come to school and go away from school, feel really good inside about their experience. One of the things that makes this happen, of course, is having the best students of all, students like Bernard and Addison, who are here, who I've known since way before they were in kindergarten, and now they're already in 2nd grade. They've grown up fast. The other thing that makes it happen is, of course, the staff that's dedicated to the purpose. And the staff members that I have with me are Rachel Lagoda, 2nd grade teacher, and Bronwyn Bressel, our art specialist. And Bronwyn in particular, who's going to come up next and do a little sharing, is the leader of the specialist team at Tahoma Elementary, and also has taken on the additional duty of being the PLC Plus leader for the district art specialist. Her dedication is just truly never-ending. Look at our hands. Go ahead, show your hands.
Thanks for pointing that out. They say that you can always tell the art teacher in the staff meetings. Fine, I guess that's right. No, this is a badge of honor. This is something that I'm proud of. It means we've had a great day in the art room. And aside from color theory and learning these fine motor skills, what I love most about the art room is the fact that our future ready skills are being developed as we learn to share all the materials and are able to talk about what we're creating and how it makes us feel and applaud others and their work, encourage one another. But I figured really hearing from me is not adequate. You need to hear it from our kids and see it. So I've sent along a little video for you to watch, including, actually I think Addison, you might be in this one too. But anyway, please enjoy this. This is the Tahoma Art Room in full steam.
It's fun. Painting rainbows. That is like how making structures and things. I like the drawing. I wrote this right now. The painting. I like that it's very colorful and fun. And it's also another way to express yourself. I like about it when we start making activities and how I color it. Because it's so creative. People have different type of arts. And paint sometimes.
I can be artistic and kind of let things that are on your mind just kind of go out on the air or something.
And it's fun because you're going to learn more things about art and you can make some other things. And you can make rainbows. And it makes me amazing. And extremely excited. Happy. Good. I'm really good inside. I'm happy with that. Makes me feel like an artist. Happy. Happy. I like being proud for myself. Happy. It makes me feel very happy and I'm excited on Sundays because every Monday I'm so excited to go to school with her. Extra happy. It loves me. I'm very like painting because my painting is very playful. Good. me feel happy?
Mainly happy and like fun.
Yay, now I feel calm.
I feel like I can do what I want. Like free, happy.
It's like my favorite specialist.
I feel happy because it's gonna like use your imagination.
The best thing ever.
I definitely have the best job ever, but I couldn't do it without my team. Elementary specialists have unique roles from others in our building. The TES Specialist Squad is a PLC like no other. Our programs are unique, but our goals are not. We are fully committed to providing rich experiences for every child, every day. But don't take my word for it.
How come?
Because it just makes my dreams come true.
Hello, I'm Rachel Lagoda, second grade teacher at Tahoma Elementary, and I have two of my cubs, Brenna and Addison, here to share a little bit with you about a project that we recently did in our class. So I'm going to post it. I'm going to talk this and then we'll go over it together. Let me see. Perfect. So in second grade, we learned so much. And we were given a new kind of take on our social studies curriculum this year with a focus on citizenship, which was new for us. We hadn't really gone through these citizenship lessons before, so it was new for me as a second grade teacher to be guiding these little ones through that. And it was really fun. Each day we had a different focus, and it kind of started out with, what is a citizen? What does a citizen do? What's their job? What's their role in the community? We talked about what does it look like to be a responsible citizen of your school. And then it got bigger, and we talked about being a community citizen in our local community. We talked about what that meant. And then we also expanded it to talk about global citizenship. And one of the guiding questions that we had was, how can I be a responsible citizen of my community? We read some articles, we watched some videos about that, and we kind of brainstormed some ideas. How can we actually do that? How, as second graders, can we be responsible citizens of our community? And we talked about projects we do around school. So we have an awesome student council that writes posters around, like pick up your trash, clean up the lunchroom. We also highlighted examples of how around Halloween, our students can donate candy to the troops, another specialist project, and we have a book drive and a food drive. And one of my students, they just raised their hand and said, could we do something like that? And that's all it took for us to kind of get an idea snowballing of how we could take an action item to be responsible local citizens. We brainstormed lots of ideas. And then we kind of landed on helping animals. What kid doesn't love animals and helping animals? And so we kind of got the idea to have a drive grade-wide in second grade to collect items for the King County Animal Shelter. Students decorated flyers, and we printed that on the back of the wish list from the King County Animal Shelter. And then we sent those home in the mail, and the donations started rolling in. We had a huge collection going outside of our class, which was very exciting. And the excited in the kids' eyes, which is something that you don't forget. So Addison and Brenna are here to kind of share a little bit more in detail about what our class did and what we learned. We have made a poster that we will leave with you and some photos. So, responsible citizenship. We are community contributors. So Addison, I'm going to have you read the first one for us. Why should we work together to help the community?
We want to help keep Maple Valley a safe and fun place to live, work, and play.
Yeah. And Brenna, how can we help show good community citizenship?
Pick up litter so our community stays clean. help local animals, donate food to people in need, donate clothes you don't need anymore.
Why should we work together?
One person might do something good, but when we work together as a team, we can make more of a difference.
And then Brenna, can you read this one? Why did you decide to help local animals?
Because we love animals and think it's good to help ones without homes. We have pets at home, so it felt like a strong connection to our pets.
Yeah, awesome. And in total, we collected over 160 items to be donated, and that ranged from litter boxes, crates, treats, toys, blankets, so many items from the wish list that King County had for us. And the help was so needed. When I took all those supplies, the workers there at the animal shelter took me to this like a cubby, kind of like a cupboard where they had their supplies, and the shelves were almost completely empty. And so they had said that our help from Tahoma Elementary could not have come at a better time. And they let me know to please share with the kids that the donations they raised were going to help 50 dogs and 70 cats that were looking for homes. So that's us, Tahoma Elementary.
Thank you all for coming. We have, yes, Superintendent Hanson, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to thank you so much, Rachel, and what a wonderful job. And for moms and dads, we'll get a picture opportunity up here real quick. Bronwyn had talked a little bit about her partners at Tahoma Elementary, as the other specialists are, and Jerry could also share. Sometimes we get used to what we know here and don't realize that it's different here than it is in some other places. And so for an opportunity for our kids in elementary to get to experience STEM at every grade level, art at every grade level, to experience future-ready specialists at every grade level, K-5, and then music and PE as well, is actually unique to school systems. And so we're blessed to have wonderful staff like Bronwyn in those specialist positions, and we're fortunate to have a school system that can support something like that. And Rachel, just what a wonderful opportunity for a grassroots project built from the kids, so thank you.
We're going to go bigger and better next year. We had lots of people commenting, can we bring stuff, can we bring stuff? So this was kind of a trial run, but I think next year we'll open it up to the whole school.
Yes.
Rachel,
Yeah.
you guys come up, Mr. Gaston, we'll get the kids, Brenda, Addison, you guys want to come up and take a picture? Please.
You guys can listen.
And Mom, yeah. Jerry, you're supposed to be leading
Yeah. Good job. Good smile.
Thank you, Cubs.
We will move on to agenda item 5.02, which is our Human Resources Tahoma Cares update. And I am excited to welcome our Human Resources team up to the front.
Right after Mr. Gaston speaking. Thank you for having us again this year. I'm thinking back to, I think it was about 9 or 10 months ago when we were presenting our initial phase of the CARES work, and how excited we were because of the board's commitment to that through line that we had talked about, and really kind of spending some time on some of our teams that maybe aren't as visible in the school setting, but are a big part of how schools run, and ours being the first one that kind of presented. I remember talking about, hey, we got a lot more teams coming, and they're excited and they're passionate about this work. And so it's especially exciting for me and our team in HR to talk a little bit about that journey over the last 8-9 months of the work that we've been doing. So this first slide represents those core responsibilities, beliefs, and values that we as a department have developed. We're going to talk a little bit about some little pieces of that and how we're working to bring it to life. But really, to be honest with you, that was one of the challenges right from the beginning was how do you create something like this and not have it be just something that you put on the wall in a frame in the back of your office, but you actually start to bring it to life. So that's some of what we would like to be able to start to share with you today. I'm going to pass on to the next slide to Mr. Mitchell.
The thing that I've appreciated about being a new part of this team, and Alyssa as well, is they didn't just hand us this CARES work and say, here's what our HR department's all about. We had a little retreat in August, and we talked about how it was and what we thought should be added, and talked about what do we revise, what do we edit, how do we become a part of this being new to the department. And these pictures are really, really hard to see. But the first picture up in the left is a picture of one of our HR wonderful, amazing people, and all the little bubbles of kind of the person that might be upset or the person that has all these questions about, their hiring and their paycheck and all that, and how all of those things come down on us. But the one thing that you'll see is that the person, you can't quite see it here, but that person is smiling. And how every time we get maybe that difficult phone conversation, we just flip it back around. Okay, new day, we get a new card. Yep, okay, we're good. We're helping somebody. And it's that responsiveness. In the middle picture, we have kind of these threads of things. And I should say, I didn't say this part, we all drew our own picture of what success looks like at the end of the year. Sorry, there's the big part of this. And so the middle one is the rope that we'll talk about in a little bit, that was talked about in our initial presentation last year. And then this last one is all of our HR jobs are kind of the roots down here, and they're helping our district kind of flourish. That was somebody else's vision of what success would look like. And we have this tree that's blossoming, and there's fruit and leaves, and all these wonderful things are happening because of what we're doing down here to help support people to grow, learn, and be the best that they can be in their work.
And really, to be honest with you, one of the challenges in this work is to, as our departments grow and change, to bring everybody on board and not have it be something that 1 or 2 or 5 people in your department or your team develop, but that everybody on your team can connect with and shares that vision. And so that's why that activity back in August when we're bringing our new team together is so important, because we want our entire team to believe in it, share it, and be passionate about it so we can bring it to life. This particular slide is an updated version from the previous one that we talked about last time. A couple things that I really want to talk about. Down at the bottom in the partnership section, the last time that we were here, we talked about wanting to partner with AJ and the Public Relations Department to make our work more visible for our staff, for our community. Our new version of that, because we've spent some time talking with AJ and how can we become more effective on our website and those kinds of things. We focus that now into our collaborative partnership with our union partners, and that really has been a big driving force for Scott and I in our positions to further develop those partnerships so that they're not superficial, they are deep, we are working together. And so that has been a real focus for us in partnerships. And to be honest with you, it wasn't something that was on our mind when we initially did this work, but as we started to get involved in it more and more, it became obvious that that is something that we really need to spend some significant time in developing so that we can become strong partners together. Another one that I wanted to talk about is connected to the bottom of the upper left-hand corner in the equity section. And this came out from our connection with some of our school partners, and one of the things that they were running into was not having some of our communications accessible in different languages. So Ashley from our department worked with one of the companies that we work with to make sure that we could make it more accessible. So that was just another win for us and something that came out of some partnerships and discussion that we had with some of our school administrative staff. Pass the next one on to Scott.
So yeah, some of the highlights on this one that we really wanted to point out is one of the things that Tracy and I have been doing is going to every building and having hiring meetings and talking about the hiring process. What does it look like? What's your screening? What about the job files? All of those different things. What questions are you asking? And so we've met now with every building, and now we're getting into maintenance and custodial and all of those things. That's our next step. Just to kind of see where are things that we can be better and make changes. Because I think if you go back one of the things on this slide, you can't see it's not all the way up there, but just our hiring practices to lead to that high quality diverse workforce. And so those are things that we're working on. We're working in conjunction with Tony to work on that work as well. One of the other highlights here is specifically we've encouraged our whole HR staff to get out into buildings when possible, have face-to-face meetings. I think that we've done a good job. I think all of our staff has at least gotten out once or twice into the buildings. That's for those. Tracy and I's goal is to get into every building every 2 weeks so that we hit every building in a 2-week cycle. And we just want to be visible, and every time we go there, we have some work to do with them. But I think the other thing is then we also get those 2 or 3 follow-up questions from other people there about this or that. And just that face-to-face, kind of being a part of the schools and not losing that connection is really important. We work on this the whole character. And then within our own department, we're working on just some onboarding and how we can make sure that everybody gets everything they need. And we're constantly revising and thinking of all those things that a new employee to our system needs. And I know that has been a big part of that, and our whole staff.
That visibility piece, I think that Scott was talking about, was a goal that we had as a department from the beginning of this year. And I think everybody has had a success story for how becoming more visible and getting out of schools has benefited our work. For Scott and I think it's really being available, being visible at a school. And a lot of those things that we actually work on are tough things a lot of times. And so just to be visible when things aren't tough and just listen to what are the things that maybe we can support that maybe we wouldn't have known about if we weren't out there and being visible. So this slide is it's a screenshot of an agenda that we have for our weekly meetings. We've been having weekly meetings for a long, long time. We had an opportunity to sit down and talk about how can we make our weekly meetings more effective, how can we use them to help bring this work alive. And so this is just an example. The top half of it is a smaller version of that first slide that I showed you so that it's always on our mind, it's always present. We work really hard to try to connect to a piece of that each week. Go a little bit down lower into the slide, you see in the first bulleted item that district updates, board, ELT, building directors. This is actually something that was new and born out of this idea that we're working closer to that through line every day. It's not something that our team was really involved in or understood or knew, because I think our team felt like we were on the periphery a little bit. But now there was like this desire, a strong desire to have a better understanding of what's happening at the board meetings, what's happening at the director level. And there's this interconnectedness that happens as a result of better understanding those things. It's not something we paid really attention to before this work. It's something that came out of us getting together, talking about what our goals were, sharing those goals, and how can we better understand and take one more step towards that through line that we've been talking about for a while. So that piece has been just super impactful, I think, and some great questions that come out of the sharing that Scott and I do around those different meetings. The second bullet there around celebration and marbles, we did some training in the summer around trust in our team, and how do we put marbles in our jar? How do we put marbles in other people's jars? How do we build trust with each other? And so we have a place here where we talk about those things. We get an opportunity to acknowledge a colleague within our team that here's something that somebody did that helps build trust within our team. There's, obviously we did some work around this meeting on that next bullet. We have some action plans that we are working on around this work that we talk about. One thing that came out of this is the problem solving and what is the one thing that you're working on right now that you want your coworkers to know about that is really maybe stressful or is requiring a lot of your thinking or maybe you need some help with. That's a place where we discuss that. The skill building piece has come as of late. We had a discussion around some problem solving and it just kind of all came to us, right in that moment that this is an opportunity for us to talk about how to build our own skills and how do we support each other. And so one thing that we have on our agenda is to do some thinking and sharing around difficult conversations. This team that we work with has a lot of difficult conversations every day, and they're pretty skilled at it. And how can we share some of that information with each other so we can all get that? That's that piece of it. And then we have an action item typically at each agenda to what are we going to walk away with here. This particular one, November and December are going to be extremely challenging for us. What is it that we're all going to commit to in our goals over the next couple of months to support that one? So I really want to kind of go through this agenda piece with you because really this is how we're bringing it to life every week. I mean, it's making a big difference in the way that we talk about things as a team. The next few we're going to pass along, and this first one I think is going to go to.
Melissa, new to the HR team, as Tracy mentioned. So this is about becoming stronger together. Individually, we're strong, but coming together, our strength is multiplied. I think that has really come to fruition through these weekly meetings that we've been having. Like Tracy mentioned, the one more thing, the problem that we might be having, we can collaborate together, support each other, offer ideas or strategies. So it's really nice to have these meetings to be able to talk to each other and to be able to see each other and just interact in a different way outside of our everyday routines. Being stronger together is really beneficial for bringing our team closer together because we are better together. Stepping into the department about 4 months ago, not really knowing what it was going to look like, I feel like I am one of those strings already coming together with the team. It's just been a real joy to get to know everybody, and I just think, again, working together makes us stronger. The weekly meetings that we have, when we talk about whatever problem we might be having, we are, again, helping someone maybe who is feeling a little on the weaker side, but the strength that we bring to one another is just really beneficial for our team, and we'd love to see that keep going.
Hi, everyone. So I've been with the department for a very long time, and I want to share a little celebration. Every month during the school year, we have a conference meeting with the PSC Union, and in the past, it's been very collaborative. We come together, there's topics from each side, we talk about them, see what we can resolve. But over the summer, Scott and Tracy, we talked about maybe how can we improve it. And so they met with the PSC president and the PSC representative from the region, and they came up with a similar agenda format like they had for our weekly meeting. And what it has done is it's provided very specific things that we talk about, and there's action items. People volunteer to find out clarification or information and the deadline for it. And so it's really made it more efficient and productive for the conference committee. And I think that's a huge celebration in building that relationship with the union.
We have a lot to celebrate. We've been working really hard on this. I think our team has a lot of passion towards it and really believes in it and is seeing the fruits of that labor. And that's challenging. Right from the very beginning, there was skepticism, to be honest with you, because I've already got a lot of work to do. How is this going to help me? And I think people on our team are recognizing that, and we're coming together and we're getting to become more effective, more efficient, and more supportive of each other. So It's been a really big impact on us. I know that you've got a lot more teams coming that it's going to impact on them as well. Just been a really important piece to the work that we're doing as a team. So thank you.
Thank you. Directors, do we have any questions or comments?
I just have a comment. My question, this year my focus is on the CARES goals, climate and culture. And as we were all up here speaking, I was thinking to myself, okay, well, my question is going to be, how do we measure the success? How is that, evident for you all that you've had success in creating a better climate and culture? And then Alyssa came up and she answered my question. So I think that was the greatest measure. So how you said that 4 months ago when you started, now you're looking up at the screen and looking at that, those threads and knowing you're part of this team now, just through the work that you guys have done. So I just want to congratulate you and say thank you so much. And it sounds like everything is working really, really well. So thank you.
Director Wiggins?
One comment, and one question. Thank you. We call HR, we don't call HR, we call it people experience. And I actually like the term better, there's some changes, but I like the question, I like the term better, because I think when you say HR, it's like you look at people as sort of equivalent to a building, or equivalent, it's like it's a resource. And this is what we do. This is the thing that we have to offer to our students, ourselves, and our people. And so I think I see, even though we're not using that name, I see that that's the approach that you're taking. It's an experience, and I love the fact that you're starting it, you're rooting it down to you and your team, because I think it all goes from that. And I can see that every time that I stop by in the office and listen to you present, I can feel that you're building this from ground zero, which is I really like that. The question that I have is, as we think about the last couple of years where we've really all been heads down, just trying to not drown in these circumstances. What is the next, as I hope we're lifting our gaze up, what does that look like? What's the next level? What's the next challenge that we're trying to overcome, address? Where are we trying to get to next now that we're coming out of the last year?
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of thinking around that, and part of the impact that the last few years have been around workforce, have been around hiring, have been around recruiting. Everybody's trying to recruit. So how are we going to be different? And how are we going to retain? So to us, I think that is a big question for us right now, is not only how do we recruit and get great staff, but how do we retain them in a really competitive market? And so that's one of the things that we're looking forward to tackling. Right now, we're spending our time on our hiring practices, and we'll be moving towards some retained pieces. And one of the things that's intriguing, I think, to Scott and I as we think about that piece of it is around, there's been the exit interviews and all those kinds of things that people have been doing for a long time, but there's, how do we have stay interviews? How do we keep people? And so that, to answer your question, I think that's what's on our mind moving forward and keeping our head up looking into the future.
Before we continue, I need a thumbs up from my directors, my fellow directors, in terms of extending beyond our 20 minutes. Okay. To my left, do you all have any questions or comments? Yes, Vice President Miller.
Just thank you for the presentation and discussion. I'm just thinking back at over the last 8-9 months since you presented this the first time, and the arc of the work that you've been on. And we're at a point along that journey, and I can just see the dotted line that's coming out from today and into the future, and it's very encouraging and exciting. So I just want to celebrate that and congratulate you. Thank you for that. And the other thing, which leads to your question, is really that listening to you 8-9 months ago and the process that you went through and galvanized your team at the time. Obviously, we did another edition of that in the summertime with some new faces. I saw that replicated with other teams that came and presented to us. The work that you're doing around not only, weaving that thread and creating growth as a team, but connecting with unions, our union partners, getting out of the buildings and connecting with team members out there on a daily, weekly basis. Is creating connective tissue between other teams. And so I just want to acknowledge the power of that and the value of that that's just being created for our system. And ask, similar to Director Wiggins' question, what's next? What's another partnership that we might create, between the HR team and another team out there beyond unions? And those are great partnerships, don't get me wrong, but I'm just wondering what's next? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, we've been so grounded in trying to get our own work in order, our own team. It is actually kind of nice to feel good about where we're at right now as a team and start to think about connecting with other teams. We want to do a better job in our own building here to connect with our other teams in this own building in that same way. So I would say, we're starting small with our group. We have some big partners that we need to really tend to and be thoughtful about. But if I was to say what is the most important thing, I would say within this own building, how do we interconnect with each other in that way? So that would be, I think we're kind of focusing.
Yeah, great.
So I just also wanted to say thank you. I like all the points that you guys mentioned with your Tahoma Cares. One thing specifically that I liked is your focus within the equity portion on the multi-language communications and accessibility. My question was, what specifically are you doing to help support that and what you're looking forward to doing in the future?
That's a great question. I feel like initially there's some things that we can do around our, an example is our volunteer program. When somebody wants to be a volunteer in our system, they need to go through a process, and that process was in English. And we have a lot of families that's not the language that they use as their number one language. So how do we make that available to more families so that they can come in and volunteer? That is an initial one that is relatively easy to work with the company to help us support that. And then how do we expand outside of that to make it more things more accessible to other people in our community?
Yes, Superintendent Hanson.
I have one comment and two questions, if that's okay. So my comment really is around, I'm hoping to get to hear Anna speak, because she stood back there quiet the whole time. I'm like, how's it going, Anna?
Good, thanks.
That's it?
It's going great.
Okay, that's wonderful. Appreciate that. Tracy, if you don't mind flipping back to slide 4. I am thankful that you mentioned the stay interviews, because I'm looking at slide 4, which is a critical part of the whole CARES time for your department. And my wondering is around those key actions and kind of the cadence within your department for revisiting those and, this is working, this is not, we need to adjust this, we're not getting the results that we want. How do you guys monitor that? What kind of cadence do you expect?
Well, right now I think our cadence has been slowed down a little bit, just to be totally honest with you. August, September, October are absolutely brutal in the Human Resources Department. We have some action plans that we have developed that will help us with that cadence. And coming out of these last few months, we feel like that will be able to accelerate a little bit, but really that is going to be the key for us, is to get these small groups together. We have 9 people in our department. Getting these small teams together to really focus and hone in on these big ticket items that we're talking about around hiring practices in particular is one of them. And how do we, what is the timeline for us? Right now we're going through finding out what is our current reality. Then that team needs to decide what are we going to do with that information that we just received. What's the timeline for us to turn that over and actually create some change that's going to support where we want to go. That particular one is really important because if we don't get on it and get moving with it, the spring is going to come and go, and it won't be able to apply until the following year. So that is one that we're really prioritizing right now. And so our focus has been around gathering that data. That's going to continue. What are people around us doing? And then coming up with a plan for doing something with that data, so that when we get to spring and we're in the hiring process, we have some things in place that we think are going to be help support us to have the very best staff we possibly can for our students.
My other comment would really be more directed for the board. People who watch this might get the misimpression that this is the first you hear of updates to this kind of work, and not realize that each of the board members has different areas of expertise and different departments that they work closely with, and the number of hours that you're putting in outside of these meetings, in meeting with groups like that, and doing your school visits, and coming up and meeting with me as individuals. So just want to acknowledge the work and leadership that the board has done connected to this as well. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Yes, Olivia.
Why are these months so difficult for HR?
Ooh, that is a great question. I'm going to hand that over here. Let anybody get this one?
Well, typically at the end of the school year in August, we have to kind of close out all the contracts, and then we rebuilt them over the summer based on our hiring. And so then we have to transfer those into the system again and get those imported over to payroll. In the meantime, we're still hiring a lot of new people. There's a lot of transfer movement. So it's just a lot of getting all that work done, and so people can get paid, for the start of the school year, for our fiscal year. So, and it starts to taper off a little bit now in November.
One really good example that I can share is we had over 1,000 of our employees that had stipends that they needed to get put forward so that they could get paid for them. That's just one thing. There's over 1,000. So just that kind of thing. That is an awesome question. I'm so glad that you asked that.
Yes, Lee.
I heard you mention diversity when hiring, especially come spring. Has there been any discussion about neurodiversity when hiring, if that's considered at all?
Gosh, that is a good question. It makes me want to sit down and talk to you about after this board meeting, because I wouldn't say that we've used that language before, but I would say that when we use that language, we're talking about in the broad sense, in the most broad sense possible, and casting the widest net so we have the very best applicants, and the very best of that rising to the top. So I want to talk to you a little bit more, so stay afterwards and you can connect. Thank you.
Yeah, I do have a question. So in terms of wellness and mental health for the staff, in terms of like supporting them, just kind of like looking at it, I see like the most yellow boxes. So like what's kind of being done? Are there any like programs or like skill building in terms of just supporting staff in that area?
You're kind of hitting my wheelhouse now because I taught physical education for 26 years. The wellness of our staff is really, really important, and to be honest with you, some of the things that we have in place in our system over the last few years were really challenging, and now that we're starting to move forward and out of these last few years, some of those things that we had in place prior to that, yoga classes, for example, are being put out there again, well attended. Staff is taking advantage of that wellness program that we have. We have staff that are taking advantage of other aspects of the wellness program that we have in our system. And Liz Thieber, who is our wellness coordinator, runs a lot of that stuff. And a lot of the attention that we can place on that right now there's becoming more momentum around it. And it's something that from an HR standpoint we're excited about, because we know that if our staff is in a good place to support our students, then our students can rise to that space. So it's something that we work with Liz on and Ms. Stewart on in her work.
I would add to that where it says team building, that's for our team, and we are working on finding ways to build as a team. We have ideas of going and playing disc golf together, just those kind of things outside of school to get to know each other in a more personal way and not just be all work all the time, but find those ways to also connect outside of work.
I think we've made the rounds. I think you've answered or responded to everybody. So I want to just sum things up by saying that this is really a celebration, and I hope that that's what this experience has felt like for you. I know for us it certainly has. You all talked about adding marbles to people's stars, and that's what you do every single day. When I walk in, you have smiles, you make us feel special and seen, and I know that you provide that same experience for the people that you interact with throughout our community. So thank you, thank you, thank you. This is phenomenal work, and to think that you've done it in just less than a year with brand new team members and have wrapped your arms around everybody and made this happen is truly remarkable. So congratulations. We will move on to agenda item 5.03, which is our first reading revised policy 1000, legal status and operations of the board. And Superintendent Hanson is going to present this agenda item for us.
I think it'll be quick. There was a RCW change, and whilst the updated model policy language, in practice, no change in what the board will be doing.
Do we have any questions or comments? Okay, I'm looking at our students too. You all had great questions, so I want to make sure you know we are always excited to hear from you. Agenda item 5.04 is first reading revised policy 1630, which is the evaluation of the superintendent. And this is actually an internal board policy. So as you've noticed, WASDA added language that enables the board to terminate a superintendent during the evaluation process. Are there any questions, directors, about this? No. Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 5.05, which is first reading revised policy and procedure 2421, acceleration and retention. And Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Don Wakely, is going to join us.
So for this particular policy and procedure, the revision is just really to add some additional language to this particular policy that is specific to a couple of years ago, as there was a lot of talk across the nation about the importance of third grade reading proficiency. And that's really that turning point where students go and change from learning to read to reading to learn. And so we know that if students are not really proficient in reading by the end of grade 3, that there is marked negative outcomes for them. School is just a lot harder than it wants to be. And so across our nation, really highlighting the importance of that in a new way, which was surfaced in legislation. We already had policy and procedure connected to early literacy. This particular policy connected to acceleration and promotion and retention just address the fact that nationwide there was a little bit of a push to say, hey, at third grade, should parents and schools be thinking that retention was actually a possible option for a student? It really is the option of last choice. You don't want to have retention unless that is definitely called for, happening for students, but this just acknowledged that other policy and kind of brought that into alignment. So, not challenging, just
Do we have any questions or comments? Thank you. We will move on to agenda item 5.06, review revised procedure 3211P, gender inclusive schools. And Acting Director of Human Resources, Tracy Krause, and Assistant Director of Human Resources, Scott Mitchell, will join us again. You're flying solo.
He talked about it. So this is an update to, this is a revision of the procedure already in place for gender inclusive schools. The previous language said honor the preferences. We had talking about a student's preference when they're talking to their family, and now what is in there is it's considering the safety concerns that might be present for that student if those things we talked about at home. So that's one of the changes, and then the other one is under the confidential health and educational information. It's a FERPA update that parents have access to those files, which might include gender identity as well, because those things are changed in some of that documentation.
Questions or comments?
That's partial up to a certain age. I know by 15, you're not allowed medical health records in your parent. Is that right, 15?
Yeah, that part hasn't changed. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 5.07 is first reading revised policy and procedure 4218, language access plan, and Assistant Director of Special Services, Mary Nefezi, is going to join us.
Okay, this one got a bit of an overhaul based on House Bill 1158. And so, do you have any questions related to the revisions that are in this reading?
I had one question. I was curious if this is going to have any significant impact on our system in terms of implementing it, or is it just what we're already doing?
I believe we are in constant discussions on how to make sure we're providing more language access for families, because that's very important to our system. We have a growing number of ELL families and just different languages that are moving into our system, which means we need to be responsive to what they need. And so we will be needing to make sure that we're following all the pieces outlined in the House bill and this policy. However, I feel like we've already done some great groundwork. The House bill does outline that if there is 50%, if districts who have 50% or more EL population, or they have 75 languages, that they need to adopt a full-time coordinator. We do not have those numbers, so I know that was something that I wanted to point out to you. Our numbers currently show 5% of our population is receiving ELL services, and we are currently, as a district, at 51 different languages. So we haven't hit those marks, but we still need to have a liaison, which we currently have. We just are trying to continually get better at that and responding to the needs and making sure folks know that they can reach out to us and making sure things that are sent out, we're providing in as many languages as we can have access to.
Thank you. Yes.
You answered my question. That was my question. Who's our coordinator going to be or whatever? So thank you for that. But I just, the policy itself, there's something that I just love that I wanted to highlight. At the beginning of it, it says that we're acknowledging that multi-language speakers are an asset to our community. And that's just such a big, it speaks to CARES, it speaks to the partnership elements of CARES, the belonging, the equity piece of CARES, and just so aligns with our thinking and our beliefs in this, in our district, and I'm so proud of that. I'm glad that that's in there. And happened to have a conversation with our student board reps in the last week that there was some ideas thrown around about ways that students could help students with ELL or MLL feel more at home and provide resources. I love that too. So I love that there's just this through line between what we're doing at the district level, what the students care about at the building level. And you answered my question, so I'll just end there.
Yeah, just a quick question about that. So there's a threshold by which you actually have to coordinator. It was percentage, number of languages spoken, or percentage of ELL.
Correct.
Is it an and or is it an or?
It's an or.
It's an or, okay.
Yeah.
I'm making eye contact with everybody. Nobody has questions, so I think we're good. Thank you so much. We are moving on to agenda item 5.08, first reading revised policy 3432, emergencies, and operations supervisor Sean Kelly is going to join us.
Madam President, Mr. Vice President, Directors, it's always an honor to come before you. This is our updates from WASDA, and we did already apply this in effect, but here's some examples of some of the things as risk mitigation, preparedness. We did run high-functioning training this year for all staff. Make sure that communication with staff with students with special needs director that we'll see if make sure we have striker chairs at all the schools that have elevators, so we get students out in emergency. We're also working on sales classrooms on emergency things there. Reunification is a big deal. We saw in the news tonight. You know, when we have an emergency, the emergency will happen. We take care of it quickly, but the reunification is going to take hours. So, as a matter of fact, tomorrow we're meeting with the safety team to review the reunification plans at the direction of the superintendent. And then we're hopefully, and we'll get back to the superintendent in a couple of weeks, hopefully going to do a tabletop exercise in January, February, and then we'll do a drill sometime in early spring when the weather's a little better. And we'll ask for volunteers. We're going to 5 of you and the students. Thank you very much for volunteers. You have the next one, emergency management. Our SROs and safety officers do go through the state required to be SROs and safety officers, so we're up to date on that. If we ever need a building for an emergency, like Red Cross on one of our buildings, we have a Summit Trails is available and a high school available for something like that. We would be quarterly of our law enforcement personnel and the fire department, our quarterly meetings. Director Pendergraft has been there, and I know the president's been there a couple of over the years. We work with the fire chief and the police chief at those meetings too. We are updating our emergency plan. Assistant Superintendent Cloud and the Assistant Director of Operations Hood is leading the team right now. We're reviewing all of our safety procedures. We got the audit back from Mr. Rose, so we're going through that right now. Director Pendergraft is on that committee too. Inventory of all hazardous chemicals. Executive Director Wakely takes care of the science departments. We take care of everything else, maintenance and all those kind of side of the house inventory goes once a year. And science teachers are really good about making sure they inventory all their chemicals. So. And training on incident command is actually on the agenda for our December 7th safety meeting. We talked about that at the direction of the HR director there. And that's kind of it. I'll take any questions if you have any. The rest of them are pretty straightforward. We talked about the procedure a few weeks ago, and that's to remind you that we did put a procedure in house and policy that we do not have emergency lockdown drills of first responders while schools in session, so now it's in policy too. And when you adopt this.
Thank you. Do we have questions or comments? Thank you. Are you disappointed? Well, you have one more shot. You have one more shot. Okay, agenda item 5. Oh, you have one. Slate is coming through.
Yeah, is there a reason as to why we are not, calling law enforcement? I'm assuming it's because we don't want to, induce any sense of trauma on students. Is that a reason? Why
we don't do it? You guys remember a little bit that years ago we used to do that to Tahoma Junior High, and we actually first through the high schools open, we did lockdown drills with law enforcement and first responders, and they had the drama kid dress up in boulage and stuff like that, and actually use starter guns in the school. And in today's time, we wouldn't be able to do that because there's just too much trauma. We did it at the high school. It was a learning moment for us that, it's not something to do while students are in the building. But anytime they want to use the building on the weekend or off hours, they can check the buildings out, which they do periodically, check our buildings out on off hours, and they have people going to be actors for them, usually explorers, scouts, or the deputies, siblings, or something like that.
And Paula, do first responders possess do they have good familiarity with the layout of different buildings?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes you'll see the fire department just pull up, they want to walk through the high school. They're at, I think Lake Williams the other day is walking through it. And then our school resource officers know the schools like the back of their hands.
Oh, wonderful.
Really good at that.
Thank you.
Good questions. Anything else?
Okay, agenda item 5.09 is first reading adopt policy 6610, video surveillance.
Okay, this is a new policy. And I will let you know, I do get parent inquiries every once in a while who has access to the camera system. The union president's asked a couple times over the years who has access to the camera systems. We have a really tight control on who has access to our camera systems. And it's just because we don't, therefore, security measures to make sure the students and staff and visitors are safe in the building. One of the things you're going to see on who has access to the security systems, the surveillance systems, is of course the administrators, supervisors, principals, the safety officers, and you probably wonder why the custodial staff have access to the surveillance system. It's because right now, there's a suspicious car sitting on the parking lot, somebody walking around. We don't want the custodian running out there. We just want them to be able to bring it up so they can see what's going on, and they usually call me or we call a deputy on duty and they turn around and check and see them. It's just a safety thing for the custodian so they don't have to physically go out without the parking lot. They have very limited access. There's 3 levels of access to the surveillance systems, and they have just live access to custodians. The second, that's level 1. Level 2 is live access, and you can play back. And then level 3 is you have live access, you can play back, and you can actually make a copy of any footage you want. And that's like for the safety officers and administrators, pretty much only a few people have access to that. The level 3. Any questions?
Just curious if there's a procedure to come at some point down the line too. This is a new policy for us.
If you'd like a procedure to come, we can work on that probably.
Just curious.
I'll talk to the superintendent.
As I've reviewed it before and as I'm rereading right now, it seems thorough enough in what it is.
Great. Thanks, John. Questions?
He's really hoping that you'll get some action up here, so we can make his dreams come true. Okay.
Just gonna ask you a question.
Mr. Davis. Okay, thank you so much. You'll remember that agenda item 510, we're going to defer to a different meeting. So we're moving on to agenda item 511, 2023 levy collection. And we have our Director of Finance and Operations, Lori Cloud, and Chief Accountant, Bill Hernandez, joining us to present and answer questions.
James, you can go to slide 2 for me, please. Thank you, sir. All right. EP&O levy resolution number 2019-20 was passed by the school board of directors in December of 2019 and was approved by our voters in February of 2020. For calendar year 2023, the board and voters had approved the levy amounts of $19.5 million based on an assessed valuation, $2 per thousand assessed valuation, which I'm going to shorten to AV for the remainder of my presentation. When the district had created the levy budget, we and our levy council used historical trends and current market conditions to determine average growth in AV year over year. In 2022, we saw our AV grow by 17.5%. Per King County, 2023 estimates show a 29% increase, resulting in a cost per thousand of roughly $1.63. As you recall, during the budgeting process last June, we had budgeted a cost per thousand of about $2, with an AV growth of about 6%. The increase isn't limited to Tahoma. The average AV growth in King County is roughly 25%, and per our levy council, it is affecting districts throughout the state. The increase is caused by 2 factors. 1, growth in our district, and 2, the current economic environment we're in. Of our 29% increase in the AV, 6% is directly attributed to growth in our district. The tech levy, on the right, is in a similar position to the EP&O levy. The board and voters have approved a levy of $4.3 million based on an AV of 44 cents per $1,000 in assessed AV. The cost per thousand has decreased to 36 cents for 2023. James, you got the next slide for me? Any questions? All right. Jumping over to local effort assistance, also known as LEA, is additional state funding designed to close the gap between the levy amount actually collected and a base amount determined by the state. This is designed to equalize the AV from district to district, hence why it's often called levy equalization. During the budgeting process, the state calculation for anticipated LEA was about $1.8 million, which is the bottom left of the graph here, for calendar year 2023. However, because of our increased AV, the state calculation now shows 0 anticipated LEA, which is great. We are currently working with our legislators to assure that they understand the issue and passing a hold harmless agreement for districts like Tahoma that have been affected by unexpected increases in AV and are unable to collect LEA until another levy is passed. Any questions?
I have one question. Do we know how many other districts are in the same position?
We know a couple of them that we've talked directly to as far as the increase in
the assessed valuation, that's statewide, and every district in our area, in the King County district, has been affected by that. There are not a large number of districts that surround us that actually collect LEA because their assessed valuation is higher than what we are able to collect. So districts that collect LEA currently are all being affected by this, but there aren't a lot of districts around us that collect LEA. I believe I told there are a large number of districts that collect LEA. I believe it's close to 200 districts in the state, but most of them, a lot of them are on the other side of the state, on the western side of Washington.
So when you're having conversations with our legislators and advocating for a hold harmless exception, I guess, to this change, are you getting the sense that they are eager to be able to support our district and other districts like our district?
That's a good question. We actually were able to meet with 2 of our legislators in the last couple of weeks that neither of them were aware of this issue. So it was good that we were able to bring it to their attention. Both of them were very concerned about it, wanted more information, and are going to be working closely with us. I will say there's historically been precedent where in the legislative session they have created legislation to hold harmless districts so they aren't penalized by certain swings that could have been anticipated. Also, it is currently in the budget for these LEAs, as you heard Bill discuss. Those numbers, those estimated numbers that we received from the state, those were their calculations. So that those numbers have already been put into their budget for this current year.
Thank you.
And looking forward, years, a year, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, how will we prepare for this kind of thing? I mean, is it even possible? I mean, we have a little bit, you said, in the budget for this, but this is outside of what we have budgeted, right?
If you go back and look at the assessed valuation increases by year for the last 20 years, these are unprecedented numbers that we've seen these last 2 years. So I don't think there's any, and these numbers are significantly different than what the state had estimated on a statewide average as well. So I don't think there's any way that we could have predicted or changed our model in how we calculate our LEA and our actually levy collection figures. That would be, it's a fine line when you're calculating those out. So relying on what state believes and predicts, they've got a lot of people that work on these through, as far as forecasting and projecting. I don't know that there's something we can do about that. I will say on the fact of, budgeting $1.8 million for calendar year 2023, keep in mind the fiscal year, our fiscal year is different than the state, so it's actually broken up into 2 parts, like our levy dollars are. But that's one of the reasons why you anticipate potentially not having those revenue streams that you had budgeted for if your enrollment's lower than what you budgeted for. And the reason why you want to ensure you have fund balance to cover those unexpected either decreases in revenue or increases in expenditures.
And so looking forward, is there anything that you would do differently?
For this particular, for LEA?
Yeah.
No, I know the calculation is it's an OSPI spreadsheet that calculates that out. So it's not a calculation that we generate, it's their calculation, their spreadsheet with estimated assessed valuations. Thank you.
So they had a figure in there for this year that we relied on when we were starting to do this, but there's you're nodding, so yeah. The question, or just clarification really, is that the way that I'm reading this, just want to make sure that I'm reading it the right way, is it's that this program is designed to provide the lesser of the baseline of the 1,844 that we see up there, or our actual calculation, which in our budget was 1,528. So we're filling in a gap. That's what this program is really designed to do. And that was based on the suggested AV growth that was in OSPI spreadsheet. Then in reality, what we're seeing is that through, really nothing changed about our cost structure or anything else, what we're doing in helping students, and something changed in the marketplace. This 29% growth, and now it flipped. And the lesser of A or B is now going the other direction, and so the OEA evaporates.
That is correct.
Yeah.
So what's the impact?
The estimated impact for this year is approximately $1.8 million if we were to not receive that hold harmless through the state. I'm hopeful that we will be able to accomplish something with the legislature. When I met, like we said, met with two of our legislators, they were very surprised. It had been brought to their attention, very empathetic, and very willing to make sure that they do what they can to help districts that have been impacted. Keep in mind, it's not Tahoma. Like I said earlier, there's 200 districts. How many of those have been impacted by this? I don't have those figures because the state wasn't even aware of it yet. I think what they'll do is the numbers that we currently have for King County are still estimates in assessed valuation. I believe OSPI, when I contacted them to find out about some hold harmless from COVID times that was still impacting, they said that they had not received the assessed valuation numbers yet. So I think they're waiting for more finalized assessed valuation numbers for 2023 so that they can determine what the impact is by district.
And that goes out of our general fund?
That will go out of our general fund, yes.
This is obviously hits us from a budgetary standpoint, but I would think that the municipalities surrounding districts have a dog in this fight as well. So is there collaboration with the city of Maple on this? Is that are there other levers that we can pull here to add support to the whole on this quest?
There really aren't. The city of Maple Valley isn't impacted in the way that the district is. They don't have levy equalization that they receive in any way, and they collect based upon different. They receive their revenue in different ways than we do, so they don't rely on it. Now, the impact on the increase in assessed valuation for the city has gone up. I think some of the areas that are going to see impact on their actual collections are people such as fire districts that collect levies in a different way. But that's probably going to actually be a positive because they calculate theirs differently. It's not a dollar amount, it is truly a rate.
Right.
Per 1,000.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking of we're kind of at this awkward inflection point where the property values are actually flat or they're actually going down now for the first time. Sometime, but the AB, it doesn't really match up, of course, but just thinking about if there's other stakeholders who maybe this could impact different places.
So the way that the assessed, you are correct, and the delay of that assessed valuation growth versus what's actually the reality of our economy. There's always been historically a delay. If you were to go back and look at assessed valuation growth when related to economic conditions, there's typically a 2-year delay before that comes into fruition. What we saw happen in the last time that we saw a significant increase like this, that was a couple of years right before the last recession that we were in, there was a significant increase, and then there was actually a correction done by King County. And we actually posed that question to our council, saying, is this something we can see again, that the King County would come in and do a rebasing of where the assessed valuation should be, because we saw huge increases and then we saw huge decreases for a couple of years. And the answer was no, they don't anticipate seeing that because of the reasoning behind the last increase in assessed valuation was literally tied to an issue with mortgages and how those were being processed. And they corrected that error. There's much more stringent rules in place now, so that is not what is driving, according to our council. That's not what's driving the increase in the AB. It truly is the economy.
And just a note for the directors, because we have all had a turn to speak and ask questions, it now resets. So if you have another round of questions or comments, you are able to do that. Yeah. I can't remember. Do you have another slide after this one? Or is that it? Okay. Great.
Let's keep the board updated.
Definitely keep the board updated. If you recall, we're meeting with our legislators next Monday night, and we've already handed out this information to both Mr. Mullet and Ms. Callan, but both have asked to make sure that we keep touching base with them, so we will make sure that we put that in front of them again next Monday when we see them as our #1 legislative priority for the district, that may be a little different than other districts that they represent.
Thank you. Thank you both for your work tonight and also your advocacy. Agenda item 5.12, so 5.12 is financial report, and we are going to be joined by our chief accountant, Bill Hernandez.
James, you could page 2 from me, please. Perfect. All right, doing the September financials. Just a reminder, we do not have enrollment numbers for this presentation. The last presentation was in August financials with the October enrollment, because those were the latest figures we had. So I'll be presenting at the next meeting. The October financials will be November enrollment, because those are the latest enrollment figures. So this is just September financials. Digging into it, September revenue came in at 11.1 million, which is about 7.5% of what we budgeted. If you take a look at our August financials and all the financials we did for the majority of last year, you would have noticed to the far right in estimates column, actual versus estimates. At this time of year, and this is something that we've always done, we don't have that estimates column just because it's too early in the year to predict any trends and it's doing real deep analysis or financial forecasting. So for that reason, we don't have the estimate column, and we won't have that until we present the November financials, which will be the end of December, the second board meeting in December. Looking at the expenditure side of things, expenditures finished in at 11.2 million for the month, which is about $434,000 over budget. Dug into this a little bit and determined it was just a timing issue. If you looked at our expenditures last September, we did not pay our insurance premiums bill until October of last year, whereas this year we received the bill earlier, so we paid it in September. So next month we should see a lower amount of our Amazon expenditures as a result. So it's purely just a timing difference month to month. Other than that, pretty straightforward, boring month. I'm trying to channel my inner AJ, and I do want to finish with a little positive note here. James, could you go to page 5, please? And if you could zoom in on the left-hand side, and really focus in on that variance, perfect, that's awesome. So if you take a look at that variance column, the red column is the dollar amount, and specifically look at the certificated salaries amount, you notice that the variance is $42,000 between what we had budgeted and what our actual expenditure was, which is a variance of less than 0.1%. If you look at our same comparison for September 2021, the variance is actually about $300,000, or roughly 0.5%. This is directly correlated with the efforts, the joint efforts between finance and human resources, specifically Christy Milligan. I want to give her a little shout out. We spent a lot of time and a lot of energy looking at, during our budgeting process, looking at how we budget for certificated salaries, and this just goes to prove that all that time and effort is paying off. Our budget is getting better and better and more accurate for the years. Any questions?
You took the words right out of my mouth. Like, I was excited to celebrate that very thing and celebrate payroll along with you and the investment of time to really dive into that and refine the way we budget for these kinds of things. It makes us smarter. It makes us better able to do those kinds of things with precision, and adds a lot of value to our system, to our community. So thanks for doing that.
Given the previous brief, is your annual budget account for that $1.8 million now?
It is not. So the annual
the last slide, right?
Yeah. So the annual budget is created last year.
No, so are we going to forecast that?
So we will, starting in November, we have the estimate column. We go back to the prior slide, that far right estimate column. So that'll be baked into our revenue question.
Unless the legislators do something.
Exactly.
When they do, we'll think optimistically, yes. Do you have any questions? No, thank you very much. We're moving on to the meeting management portion of our evening, and you'll recall that this goes very quickly. So agenda item 6.01 is action to approve our consent agenda. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 6.01, action to approve our consent agenda?
I move to approve our consent agenda.
Second.
Vice President Miller motion, and Director Wiggins seconded. I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item, sorry, Matt. I missed it. The approval of agenda item 6.01, action to approve our consent agenda, passes 5-0. Agenda item 6.02 is action to approve our coach personnel report. May I please have a motion to approve agenda item 6.02, approving our coach personnel report?
I move to approve our coach personnel report as revised.
Second.
Vice President Miller motion, and Director Wiggins seconded. Do we have any discussion? I will call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
The approval of agenda item 6.02, approving our coach personnel report as revised, passes 5-0. And that brings us to agenda item 7.01, which is adjournment. This meeting is adjourning, look at that, exactly at 8 o'clock. It's going to be a good night. Thank you, everyone.